Well, I've been traveling around all over the place with my burger and French fries, and I actually purchased this in 2004. And so, you've seen that on the internet. People are doing this. Was an accident. I got it in 2004. My kids were little, and I left it in the back of the truck for some reason. And then, like 3 days later, I opened it. I was, oh shoot! And then so I just put it in the garage floor. And I was going to get it later, and then that happens. Like a month later, I was like, oh, it's still there, and I opened it up and was like, it looks fine. And so you can come look at this. The box says 2004, and the hamburger is still, the cheese kind of dehydrated, and it smells. But the French fries are doing well. The crazy thing is, yeah, it looks like you can heat them up, but once you smell it, because the oils have turned rancid. That's not food. So when they call it fast food, it's a misnomer, because it's not food. It's fast, and you put something in your belly, but this is causing major problems. And I hate to say that, because I was a swimmer, and I went through school for free, swam for free, and our jackets, we had this patch, a McDonald's jacket patch on it, because they sponsored us. And here I am, like, dogging them, and they actually put me through school. But this is not healthy, okay? And it should break down. Now, the box here is break it down, so it means that's probably, you can eat the box, it's probably healthier for you. And then this has never been opened, and I don't know how it's escaping, but if anybody wants to know how much sugar is in one of these, that's it. That's how much sugar is in this. But the crazy thing is, chemistry is amazing, because you can't see it. Okay, so you can't see it. It's just not there, right? Except, what's going on in our country? Diabetes is huge. Matter of fact, I'm going to kind of jump ahead here a little bit, but they're saying that in the United States, up to 50%, if you take all the diabetic medications that's out there right now, and then everybody who's pre-diabetic, it's about 50% of the population. And this is one of the number one reasons. So, I don't, like I said, I'm not going to step on people's toes. Whenever I say, has anybody been to McDonald's, everybody's really, it's almost a shaming thing, like, I don't go there. And then you see somebody going through drive-thru, and you're like, I get it, because life is fast and furious. So I know everybody's got different reasons why they're here today, and I hope that you can get some really good information. But I wanted to ask the question as we open this up. What's more important to you, and don't feel shame about this, more important to you, your health or your wealth? Let me hear, because it's a small group. But everybody?
Health.
Would anybody here in this room say wealth? Okay, you're honest, that's good. Okay, because most everybody says my health, right? So I'm going to ask you some questions. So if health is your number one priority, not your wealth, you probably know what's in your checking account right now, right? You probably know pretty close. If you've got a 401k, you probably check that pretty often, right? You meet with your tax guy and all that stuff. If I said, what's your A1C? Would anybody say, I know what mine is? Okay, good. A1C. What's your hematocrit? What's your red blood cell count? What's your, those are like things that are saying, what your health is doing, but yet you know more about your checking account. So you say that your health is your top priority, but your actions are, it's your wealth. And again, I'm right in there too, guys. I'm not sitting up here saying I've got all the answers. I got lots of health problems. And I, turning 60, well, I'm over that now, it gets a little more challenging. But I want you all to stand up for a second. We're just going to see, this is a little test to see how healthy you are. Put things out of your hands. Some of you have been in the class before. This is a repeat, but it's so good. And you can do this with your family members. Because do you know why we want to not have a fall and break a hip? Everybody, I've been a doctor now for almost 36 years. People come in, my balance. Like, well, what about your balance? Well, if you fall and break your hip, the statistics are, over the age of 65, you fall and break a hip, within 1 to 3 years, you're dead. That's the stat. So it's not making this stuff up. So that's why it's so important, not just to have balance, but it's for your health. Because if you get out of balance and break a hip and you're over 65, you gotta go, I'm gonna be dead in 1 to 3 years, or maybe I might not be. That's a scary statistic. So
So I have a friend who just broke her hip. So why do they die within that period of time?
Okay, so easier to throw clots because of the healing. We don't heal as good when we're older. Our mobility goes down. Then your heart function goes down. So cardiovascular events happen, strokes, all that stuff. So
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
that's a great question. Good question. Okay, can you guys stand there and put your foot out in front like this, and not like me, like don't wobble. Kind of hard to do. Now, that's really good, Jackie.
Thank you.
Now, here's the thing. They say in the health field, you should be able to move it around, not fall, and but you should be able to do it for 30 seconds
Oh, that's normal.
with your eyes closed.
Oh.
Try to do it now with your eyes closed. Yeah.
Without holding
I almost have a broken head today.
So, everybody can sit down. So here's the thing. This is something everybody can do, and I feel goofy doing it too, but if I'm watching TV, which is pretty rare, but watch something on TV, I'm standing up and trying to practice this. And then close my eyes and try to little by little. When I first did it, I did the same thing as Jim. I went way over, and I was, oh my gosh, so I was holding the chair and starting to do that. But if you can do that and practice it, you do break a hip. If it happens, you're going to heal better because of your balance, okay? So we're going to get into this, but I wanted to just take a moment and pray. Is that okay? We're in church, so. Heavenly Father, thank you so much just for bringing these people out on this rainy day. And you know what's on their hearts because you know the beginning and the end, and you are the way, the truth, and the life. Lord, help me to deliver a message that's clear and understandable, and Lord, that we wouldn't make this an idol. Lord, that food, nutrition, exercise, and all those things are not as important as our relationship with you. You are a creator, you made us, and help us to understand how we're put together and how you love us. And I pray that you just bless this room in Jesus' name. Amen. So think about this to yourself. How is your personal health going right now? Can you look back 10 years ago and say, this is where I was and here I am? Is your trajectory going in the right direction? Most everybody will say, I'm not as healthy as I used to be, but I'm hopeful. Hope's great. But you can't hope your way sometimes out of these health issues. Prayer can work, and I've seen that happen millions of times. That's an exaggeration, but probably thousands of times with patients over the past 36 years. I don't know what's wrong with that patient. I tell them I don't know what's wrong with that patient. I say, I'll give you a treatment, but let's pray, and they get better. I think it was the prayer. I really do, because I'm like, I don't think I did that. Prayer is powerful, but if you have any health issues, think about what it's going to be like 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 15 years from now. And I usually get a smart butt in the room who's like, I'm not going to be alive in 10 years, so I don't care. Well, then maybe the next 5 years could be better, right? Or just, is it time to just cash in your chips? I don't know. Anyway, I won't go down that road. But watching your grandparents, your parents, I'm a grandparent now, so when I say that, I'm like, oh boy, that sounds kind of old. My mom's a great grandparent, and I always tease her. I'm like, you're old. And she's like, well, you're a grandparent. I'm like, that's true. Watching them decline in health, does that concern you? Because you go, well, I'm in the same gene pool, and I kind of grew up the same way they did. They taught me, they raised me, I'm eating the same things, doing the same. It's probably where I'm headed, right? So hopefully that concerns you enough to motivate you. What's your health plan? We have our financial plans. I want to retire at age whatever. I've got all this stuff, and you're hitting all these benchmarks. But what's our health plan? This is why this two patients They're both 83 years old. You thought it was a before and after picture, which I wish it was, because I'm a chiropractor and also physical therapy. Be like, yeah, I fixed her. Look at this. You know? Two different ladies, but they came in on the same day. This lady right here, she came in on a walker. She had 17 different medications in her purse for everything, to get up in the morning, to have her heart beat, to slow it down at night, to go to sleep, to wake up, to decrease my blood pressure, to help her digest food, to go to the bathroom. I mean, she had it all. And it was like, oh my gosh. And can you believe she was grumpy? My staff, they were like, oh, she's coming again today, and just shuffling in and just miserable. Okay, 83. This lady came in, she pulled a hamstring in her yoga class and was like, you gotta fix my hamstring because I gotta get back out there. And she was happy, no drugs. Her dad was a chiropractor, her grandfather was a chiropractor. She's got beautiful posture, doesn't she? And so this isn't a chiropractic show, but when your nervous system is running the show well, because this is what controls you, your biocomputer. If it's interfered with, you get short circuits, yeah, you might get a, hitch out here or whatever, and people come in for all those things. But those same nerves go to your heart, they go to your lungs, they go to your digestive organs, they go to reproductive organs. I've had ladies come in all the time, my back's killing me, I got migraines, and on their list, they've been trying to get pregnant for 15 years. And we do a treatment, and they get pregnant, and they're like, what'd you do to me? And it's like, no, there was a hitch here, and it wasn't sending messages to the reproductive organs properly, so pregnancy's not going to happen. And I don't tell them, hey, I'm going to fix that. It's my job is to make sure that this is as in good shape as possible, because that's how God created us, so that we will function right. So it's more about function. So we're going to talk about 3 golden nuggets today. And did you hand out the handouts or you kept them?
I'm waiting for you to tell me what to do.
Okay, that's fine. Because you guys will be staring at the handouts and not listening to me, and I'm narcissistic. I want you guys to pay attention. It's my job. But 3 golden nuggets: air, dirt, and sunlight. Those 3 things, if you can get connected with them, they're all free. They're all part of what we need to be as humans. It's what God created us. That, like this is, I'm not trying to get patients from this. This is a part of a ministry. And I think those 3 things, when I tell patients, they say, that made the biggest change in my life. And it's like, well, that's because you're connected to how you're supposed to function, okay? But what do we do with our lives? We're trying to get comfort all the time. We've got air conditioning, and we get the heat, and so this isn't the best of air. We're not getting outside much. And poor kids, when I was growing up, I sound like that old guy, I had to go to school uphill both ways, barefoot, but, we played outside bare feet a lot, Kids don't even go outside anymore because it's not safe, I mean, we were outside, and my mom, we had this big, huge cowbell thing, and it was like 10:30 at night, dark, and like, okay, I gotta go home, but it was safe back then. We did things, but we're not connected with the air, the dirt, and sunlight anymore. And what you're hearing out there, you gotta have your sunscreen on because you're gonna get sun cancer and skin cancer and all this other stuff. I'm not saying that's not true, but I don't know. For millions of years, right? Well, if you believe what the Bible says, we've been around for about 7,000 years. But anyway, won't get into that because we'll start arguing. But sunlight is so good for us. It's how you make your vitamin D. So we're going to go through some things. 1970s. Most of us, except for some little people over here, were around in the 70s. And looking back, each decade and just saying, what was going on. But in the 70s, there was a shift. But when you go back and think about the 1970s, we were pretty healthy as a country. Compared to today, would you say, if you look back, or your own health, just go, yeah, people going around. Little funny story, I was an intern in the 80s, and we were sitting in, all of us interns sitting in there, we're studying stuff, whatever, and someone came in, busted in and said, hey, you gotta go into room 2, patient in room 2, you gotta go see room 2. And we're like, what's going on? No, you just gotta go. Like, this is wild. And we're like, okay. So, and it's a teaching hospital, so they're used to having people parading in and out. So like 10 of us go in there because the guy in there was 5'8" and he weighed 250 pounds. And that was, wow. And you guys are looking at me like, yeah, where's the punchline? I mean, so many people weigh 250 now. I mean, I have a little 5'2" lady that's 325 pounds, and she looks like a grandmother and, you know, kind of normal looking today. But back in the 80s, 250-pound guy was like, you got to go see this. That was 40 years ago. So we have changed a lot. And so I don't have all the answers, but when I was reading my Bible, this Bible verse stood out, Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because you have rejected knowledge. Rejected knowledge, okay? I also reject you from being my priest. Since you have forgotten the law of God, I will also forget your children. That sounds painful. I mean, at the time, won't get into it, but the priests were supposed to be teaching the people what they were hearing from God, and they weren't doing that. They were gathering tithes for themselves and building nice homes for themselves, and they were making money and stuff, and God was upset with them and said, look, you've rejected my knowledge. I'm going to reject you and your kids. You can't even be my priest. So priests were supposed to be other teachers. An interesting thing is doctor. When you look up the definition of doctor, it comes from the Latin word docere. That's the only Latin word I know. It sounds cool, doesn't it? Then people go, oh, you know Latin? Nope, just docere. It means teacher. So doctor is supposed to be teaching. How many of your doctors teach you today? What do they do instead?
Pills.
Pills, right. Right, and another Bible verse just popped in my head in Revelation where it says at the end times, the merchants of death were confusing and marveling. It was kind of like magicians. The verbiage was on deceiving the people with pharmakeia. Ooh, that word. You look that word up, that's where we got pharmacy from. So many people are on drugs today. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying go home and throw your drugs out. I'm just saying that somebody needs to teach you about health, okay? Because we've lost that, and people are being destroyed for lack of knowledge. So we're going to do some teaching today, and it's going to be about air, dirt, and sunlight, and pretty basic stuff. They did not teach us this in medical school, by the way. But I went to school in the 70s, 80s, and I could say it was turning back then. My buddy, who's a liver surgeon in Baltimore, we grew up together. We've known each other for 50 years now. And he is so sick of the profession he's in. He is getting his degree in functional medicine. And it's crazy because when I started out as an intern, he was really mad because I switched gears. I said, I'm going to go chiropractic holistic way, and he was like, we're not going to be surgeons together. And I was like, no, I want to help people. And so it's funny, but he's worse than me now. Like he goes around talking to his patients and telling them, you got to stay away from this stuff. But he's gone overboard. Like he takes at least 100 different vitamins every day. And I'm not joking. I got an actual picture of it if you want to see it. I'm like, Mark, there's too much stuff. He goes, I know, but it's all good. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think God wanted us to eat all that stuff. So I think, we've taken this functional medicine thing that is good, but we can pollute it as well. And now all of a sudden you're trading your drugs for a whole list of more pills. And I don't think that's what the answers are. I think it's in the air, the dirt, and sunlight. I really do. And then watch your body do miracles. So we're talking about health. I asked this, I've done this for 500 MDs before, which is really fun because I got a doctorate in chiropractic and physical therapy, so already we're a little, but I'm on the stage and they're not, so it's my class. But I asked them, what's the definition of health? And it's crickets. I'm like, you guys are healthcare professionals. You don't know what health is. Well, we know what health is, but well, what is it? Well, so throw me out your all's definition, which is going to be better than them, I'm pretty sure. Give me an idea what health means to you. Like, what's your definition of health? Vibrant energy, like that. Your face is like, I want to say something.
Just your body working harmoniously, all the systems working together
I get it.
as they should.
Yeah.
as they
So
were meant to.
function, right?
Yeah.
It's functioning well, right? Okay. Usually what I hear, if I am not leading people along, they say, feeling good, right? Feeling good. And it sounds good, but people who have stage 4 cancer, they feel good sometimes. And you go, they're not healthy. Something's wrong, right? When you get a cavity, it takes 6 months for it to start to hurt. So that's why, because I'm skeptical. You can imagine me in school. Why? I'm driving my teachers crazy. I need to know why. So in dentists, I'm like, do I really need to come every 6 months? Because if it's just to make your kids go through college, I'll come once a year. Really, is it important or not? And he said, well, the reason is that cavities take 6 months to start to hurt. So if we check you in 6 months, hey, you got something, they can zip it and seal it. Or he goes, you can wait 6 months and then had a chance to grind in there, and then now we're going to have to fill it, and now your tooth is weak. Your choice. I'm coming every 6 months. That makes sense, right? Okay, so pain, feeling good, is not a barometer for health. We do want to feel good.
The absence of ailment or injury.
That's another good one. I like that. Ailment or injury. Okay. So one of the things that I make fun of myself a lot because there's a lot to make fun of. But as I've gotten older, I realize the more I know I don't know. Just sit on that for a little bit. It's the more I know I don't know. The human body is amazing. And but what I do know, and this is something I go to the bank with, if you put the right things into the human body, it will do miracles because it's designed to do miracles. And if people do, I get some of them come up after and say, hey, that was really good talk and everything, but the whole God thing and creating and miracles, I don't believe in any of that stuff. And that's cool. You can believe whatever you want to believe. But I asked the question, do you know how you make a scab when you get cut? We get a cut, and they're like, no. I go, it's pretty miraculous. Like, you didn't have to go, oh my gosh, I'm bleeding. Vitamin K, potassium, collagen. Wow, I don't remember. It just happens. It's miraculous. I don't know. The brain, the biocomputer knows you're leaking somewhere. Fix it. It's cool, right? And yet we go, there's no more miracles anymore. Are you kidding me? How about just take a pregnant woman? You got literally a dab of jelly that's called protoplasm, sperm, and you get another dab of jelly from mom, which is another protoplasm, which is the ovum of the egg. It's literally it's jelly. They come together and make a body in 9 months, and we go, yeah, that's nothing. It's crazy. We don't know how it happens, but we can say, yeah, in this stage they divide. In this stage they make fingers. This stage they make eyes. Matter of fact, the eye is fascinating. It actually comes off the brain and starts to drift apart, so it comes from the same tissue. And then there's connections on the eye and connections over here, and nerves, a million of them. 1 million nerve fibers to make up the optic nerve have to grow together and connect in the right sequence. Every one of them, or you'll be blind. So all of us, I don't know how we did it, but it happened inside mom. It's pretty freaking amazing. So you could leave here and go, you know what, I am kind of amazing. You might be having a bad day, but you're doing miracles inside yourself. And really, air, dirt, and sunlight will help that tremendously. Maybe you can get off some of the drugs. Maybe you can get rid of some of the arthritic pains, things like that you're going through. Maybe you'll digest food better. Reproductive function improves. So, but another one is how do you think a thought? These are things that keep me up at night. It's I don't know, it just came up, I think the craziest thing is, you have a connection with somebody and you haven't talked to them in 6 months, and you call them and they're like, man, am I glad you called. I was just thinking about you. And you're like, wow. You know, that's crazy, you know, but thoughts, there's something else that's going on. And I think one of my favorite Bible verses is Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 5. It says, just as you do not know the path of the wind and how bones are formed in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you do not know the activity of God who makes everything. And you can camp out on that for a while, because we don't know the path of the wind. I've been on TV a lot, and usually, like right before I go on, the weather's there, the weather guy, and I know him pretty well now. And I'm like, you make weather exciting. I said, but you're wrong a lot. And he goes, I know, and they still pay me. This is great, you know. And I go, I have to get stuff right all the time, you know, because when I'm wrong, like, and he goes, yeah, this is great. You know, he's having a good time. But he doesn't know the path of the wind. They guess. And it's funny down in Roanoke, because of the mountains, we get the storm coming in, and they say, we're going to get 12 inches of snow, and everybody goes and buys all the milk and bread. I'm not sure why. But they go and do this, and then, you know, we get like a dusting. And it's because it hits that mountain, and, you know, he was like, well, it could have gone over it. We could have got 12 inches, but it didn't happen. They don't know, okay? This Bible verse is like written thousands of years ago. We don't know the path of the womb. We don't know how bones are formed in the womb of a pregnant woman. How does jelly turn into bone? I've asked many doctors this, and that's how I get them to quiet down in the room when there's a bunch of doctors. So I'm like, okay, cool, I don't have that answer, but how do we make bones? Well, in stage, no, how does it happen? And they go, I don't know. And I go, and you're a bone doctor? It's kind of fun. So how are we doing, since the definition is, well, did I even say it? Of health is it's a state of optimal physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of a disease or infirmity. So our whole medical system is set up on disease and infirmity. It's about optimal physical, okay, optimal mental, and social. These ladies right here, she was pleasant socially, she was physically well, she had an injury in her hamstring, that was it. She was functioning super great. She could drive, she did it. Amazing. And this lady needed assistance in walking, drugs to keep her going. She wasn't physically, mentally, or socially well. She was sick. So how are we doing as a country? You know, we said 1970s, we were doing pretty good. I think if we went back to the 1900s, you know, aside from infections, we've definitely improved with that. But, you know, health-wise, no, we've gone down. So I just made some notes here. So physically, we're definitely sicker as a country than we've ever been. And I don't think that's up for discussion. Mentally, we have more mental illness than ever before. Social, we're more divided and there's more tension than ever before. And then there's more suicide than ever before. And the sad thing is suicide rates are it's getting more and more and more in the younger population. We had a 9-year-old boy hang himself in Roanoke recently. And you go, at 9, you're wondering where you're going to put the booger on someone's chair. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, and yet it's like, what was so desperate in his life that at 9? And you know, that's not isolated. That I treat a lot of police officers, and they tell me stories, and I'm like, oh, it's just heartbreaking. So much mental illness. So I'm going to bum you guys out, but I want you to know where you're at, because a lot of times when you see stuff like this, you go, wow, I didn't know that, you know. And it's not just McDonald's. You could do this with Wendy's. You could do it with Jack in the Box. You can do it with any of them. And I'm gonna show you why that happened, and it's very sinister. I think it started out for the good, but it turned into something very bad, and you really need to know this. But the top 3 killers in our country are, what's number 1?
Heart disease.
Heart disease. Yep. It was heart disease in the 1970s as well. But interesting tidbit, it was more men. Today, it's more women. Heart disease. Yeah. Most of the time when I'm in a room, they're like, you know, yeah, women die of heart disease, but it's more of a man's disease. No. It's more women now. So heart disease, number 1. Number 2.
Cancer.
Okay. Got diabetes, stroke.
Cancer.
Cancer's number 2. and it's climbing fast. It's catching heart disease. Number 3. Stroke, part of heart disease. This is going to shock you. Medical treatment errors. This is done now. When I do this in front of 500 MDs, you can only imagine they get a little bit touchy, right? Because you guys are killing your number 3 cause of death. Now, are they trying to do it on purpose? No. This is 2016, Johns Hopkins, very notable medical facility. It's their numbers, not mine. You can look it up. There's a study, and they said that it is the number 3 killer in the United States. But it's not being put out on TV because that would be kind of depressing, wouldn't it? Because you're going to your healthcare specialist for health, and it's your number 3 killer. It's a little scary. So, and I think I'm going to explain why. Matter of fact, it's the number 3 is more than what is killing people with diabetes and obesity combined. That's a very, very big statistic because there's a lot of obesity, a lot of diabetes, and it's ahead. Medical error is ahead. This isn't in my class, but in 1987, in California, the hospitals in some particular area went on strike. I don't know if some of you remember that, but it was big news. They went on strike. They were like, I don't know. I can't remember all the details, but I was an intern back then, and I was like, oh boy, that strike, what's going to happen to these people? The death rate in California went down while they were on strike every month. And the AMA put out an article in their magazine and said, we cannot afford to go on strike ever again. Go back to work. So they went back to work, and the death rate went right back up. And it was ugly in the journals because they were like, don't do this again. Because when we're not around, people live longer. When we're around and we're killing people. That was 1987. So anyway, that was a little tidbit. But in 2023, bring it current, this is another study done by Johns Hopkins. They said that diagnostic errors account for 795,000 deaths or permanent disabilities per year. That's almost 1 million, you guys. Okay, so that's huge. Deaths or disability from medical diagnostic errors. So you get the MRI and it was wrong. Okay, I've had many instances where patients who have been told, I've got stage 4 this or that and got 3 months to live, there's nothing that can happen. They told me go home. And they go home and die. And then they do an autopsy and they realize that person was given the wrong MRI results and the person died anyway. And so they told us when we were interns, be careful what you tell your patient because they'll believe you. And you go, a perfectly healthy person died because they were told the wrong diagnostic error, that's massive. But that goes to show how powerful this thing is. And so I think I'm going to hit hard on that in just a few minutes too. We have the highest drug-related deaths in the world out of all the countries. We have had a 792% increase in drug-related deaths from 1999 to 2021, and it's from properly prescribed drugs and illegal drugs combined. So it's not all prescription drugs, but it's both. And this is reported by the CDC and National Safety Council. So again, that's not Dr. Pat's thing. This is reporting by medical institutions. So we're the highest in drug-related deaths. And then kind of a side note, we consume in the United States 95% of all opioids that are produced in the whole world. 95%, and we make up, I think it's somewhere around 4% of the world population. I mean, but we consume 95% of the opioids, which is a lot of the suicides, a lot of the deaths, a lot of overdoses. And you go, what are we teaching everybody from the ground up that pain, you can't have pain. And we bought into it big time. So the pain, I'm not healthy. I got to feel good, right? I got to feel good because then I'm healthy. Wrong. We got to function right. So in 1970, we spent $74 billion on healthcare with a B. I remember hearing that stat and then going, gosh, that's a lot of money. Billions, right? 74 billion. Today, it's almost 5 trillion. With a T. Trillion dollars in healthcare. Back in 1970, 1 in 10,000 children were diagnosed with autism. Today, it's 1 in 31. And there's a new study coming out. It's probably going to get revised to 1 in 20. Infant mortality back in 1970 was, we were 15th in the world, which I'm like, gosh, why would we be 15th? Like in 1970, we should have been number 1, right? Or whatever, 15, that's not that good. We're at 54 now, 54th in the world for infant mortality. Heart disease was number 1 then, it's still today, but more women now. Obesity, there was 13% were considered obese back then. Now it's nearly 50%. Children, it was about 5%, and now it's, depending on what studies and everything, it's hard to see. I just go walk around out in public and just go, wow, this is a lot of overweight children. Anywhere between 20 and 45% is obese. You're going, that's almost 50%. Diabetes was about 4%. And now it's close to, with pre-diabetic, it's close to 50%. And diabetic sugar problems actually fuel the heart disease and cancer problem. So that's not helping. And then Alzheimer's was pretty rare in 1970. And today, 7 million new cases every year. And it accounts for 120,000 deaths every year because of having some kind of side effect with the Alzheimer's, and it shouldn't be. But here's where you're going to have your eyes open. Coca-Cola gets 25% of its profits every single year from food stamps. Food stamps. And you're thinking these people are poor, they should be getting food stamps for purified water, right? I'm not saying it's America, you shouldn't be able to go buy a Coke, but we're giving food. Coca-Cola is making 25% of their profit from food stamps. The soda industry as a whole, it makes $10 billion per year off of food stamps only. 10 billion. The soda industry sponsors millions of dollars into the American Heart Association. So you wonder why the American Heart Association says that having 1 of these a day is okay. And it goes through and you go, wait, sugar problems fuel heart problems, but the American Heart Association is saying it's okay? That's crazy. But we don't know that unless you go digging around. And that's just, I'm not just picking on Coke, we're talking about the whole soda industry, but they sponsor millions. And then just the American Heart Association, you look at the Diabetic Association, you look at the Cancer Foundation, you look at all of them, they're all bought and sold by this stuff, okay? And here's how it got started. And rather than me try to remember it, I want to read this to you because this was out of Medical Journal. So how did it get started? In the 1980s, tobacco giants R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris acquired major food companies like Kraft, General Foods, and Nabisco, applying their expertise in creating addictive chemicals for their cigarettes to the processed food industry. Research published in the journal called Addiction shows that during their ownership from 1988 to 2001, these companies engineered hyper-palatable foods with specific combinations of fat, sodium, sugar, and chemical additives designed to trigger cravings and overconsumption, similar to their cigarette formulations. By leveraging their extensive knowledge of flavors, colors, and marketing strategies originally developed for tobacco, they produced highly addictive foods products like Oreos, Kraft macaroni and cheese, Kool-Aid, which were 80% more likely to be hyperpalatable than comparable non-tobacco owned products. Although they divested from the food industry in 2000. Their legacy persists in a widespread presence of these ultra-processed addictive foods in the American diet, contributing to obesity, diet-related health issues costing trillions of dollars and millions of lives. This was in a very well-published medical journal. So the tobacco companies, and going back, remember, the writing was on the wall. They were Congress was, hey, you got to put these warnings on there. Your product causes cancer. And they're like, well, we got to do something. We got to make these people addicted to it so that even though they get this warning, and they got there's people today that's still hyper addicted to cigarettes. And they're like, I want to quit, but I can't, right? And so they put all their chemical stuff into our food so that we would be addicted to it. And so there are people who are literally addicted to this stuff, and they know, I know, but maybe next month I'll stop. And just they sound like an addict, So, and here's this was crazy. There are chemicals that they put in the food to soften the food, makes it more palatable. But here's something that you didn't know about this guy up in here, this biocomputer, is that it keeps track of how many times you chew. So if you chew, sitting there chewing a salad, eventually your satiety center alerts and says, you know what, you've had enough, you're full. But if you've had, a Big Mac and it takes 3 bites, your brain goes, eat more. So they chemically changed our food so that we wouldn't chew as much because we would buy more and they would make more profit. And you go, that's just awful. It is, in my opinion, it's satanic. And so the fast food, because we're kidding about this, but fast food industry that's not fast food really isn't food. This is terrible because, again, a lot of these companies sponsor, competitions that I've been in. But there was a hidden thing where they went into fast food, and I won't gross you guys out, but one of them that was so disturbing was Subway. They actually tested the tuna at Subway, and they couldn't find any tuna in it at all. And I love their tuna sandwiches, and I go in there and go, well, that's pretty healthy. I'm gonna have a tuna sandwich, put all these vegetables on it, get some protein. No tuna in it. Well, what is it? And so I'm sure some of you have heard of GLP-1s, Ozempic and all them, right? Do you know we make our own GLP-1? It's a glucagon-like peptide, which is the hormone that tells your brain you're full, okay? So when you're chewing, you release GLP-1 and your brain goes, you had enough. So you can't overeat. And try this. Has anybody here ever sat down and had 10 avocados, just sat there and I'm gonna eat 10 avocados? You can't, because you release GLP-1. And I've tried, I've had 2. And I'm like, I was really hungry. And I'm going, I can't eat a third. I try to do this with apples. You can't eat 10 apples. But I sat down and I cut up 2 apples and I ate them, and I had some cheese with it and stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna eat another one if I want to. I couldn't. And I'm like, gosh, I can eat a lot. I mean, I can go to the all-you-can-eat buffet, like the best of them. I mean, when I was swimming, eating like 8,000 calories a day, and we were just told, eat, because you're burning off swimming 6 hours a day in the pool and training, it's like you needed fuel. So, I mean, I can eat, but I can't eat 10 apples. I can't eat 10 avocados, because that is how we are designed to release our own GLP-1. And you know what? It doesn't cost anything. I heard it somewhere in the neighborhood, the insurance company will pay like $1,200 for an Ozempic prescription. Now in France, you can get that same drug for $80, and it's made in America. Something's wrong there, but we don't even need that. We need our own GLP-1 to be released, and you do that by eating. You eat this, and you're going to go, I could probably have another one, and that's why, because your brain's going, you gave me no nutrition. I'm not releasing GLP-1. Give me something else. I need something else. So if you know anybody who's going through weight loss stuff, just tell them, look, eat some whole foods. You'll release your own GLP-1. and you won't have the side effects of this stuff. But that's when you can see people come out, because you tell them, you got to give up your cigarettes, and they're like, or they'll get upset with you, don't take my coffee away, and coffee's really minimal stuff. It's just the junk you put in it. Food colorings. So that's been in the news, right? Did you know that the food colorings came from the petroleum industry? Anybody heard that? So we make a lot of petroleum, right? And there's byproducts. And so some smart chemists got around because we were dealing with the byproducts of breaking down crude oil and putting it into gasoline, right? So there's byproducts, and it's just sitting there, and it's caustic or whatever. And so some chemists came around, and they would change some hydrogen bonds, do this and that and everything, and they can make bright blue or yellow or red, and they're literally from crude oil, okay? And they put it in the food, and they're neurotoxins to our brain, and it creates ADD, ADHD, autism. They're saying it could be multiple sclerosis. There's all kinds of neurological disorders, Alzheimer's. So food coloring, bad. And one of the worst ones, red dye number 40, they're saying that's really causing cancers and stuff like that. But it's literally you're putting a petroleum product in and saying this is healthy. It's crazy. But again, that's R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris. They're tobacco companies, and they gave us a cancer-causing product and made us addicted to it. And they've done this to us in the food. And then, so another one of my favorite Bible verses is John 10:10. The thief comes to steal and kill and destroy. And I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. And this is not abundant life. So someone's coming to steal our health away, and you usually kind of go in progression, like, steal, kill, destroy. Kill should be last, right? Because that's the worst, to kill somebody. But it's steal, kill, destroy. Because if you can kill a dad in the family will still survive. But you destroy a family, and you're going to ruin generations. So like, ooh, that's a big one. So when we're looking at our health, it's not just, I just want to feel better. It's really, we're fighting a war. And it's, in my personal opinion, I believe it's a satanic thing, because it's, when you look at this and go, why? Why are we doing this to, and gladly doing it and going, these guys keep making more and more and more products, and more, they're making more and more money. But we'll go further. So some more reasons why the U.S. is in such bad shape. Because we've separated our healthcare system physically, mentally, and spiritually, or socially, okay? We've separated that. However, you are a body that is made up of a spirit. It's made up of a mind, and it's made up of a body. You can't separate them. Try to do that. One day when you're really in a bad mood, like mentally just struggling, you're going to eat poorly. It's like, what? I'm just going to have this. And then you feel bad, right? And then it's like, I should go pray and sit down and read my Bible, but I got the splitting headache, I don't feel good. And all of a sudden it's been like 3 weeks and you haven't picked up your Bible. It affects you, mind, body, and spirit. It just does. But in the medical world, we know we make more money when we can separate those things. And when we're talking in the medical world, it's like, yeah, those people, they go to church. That's on them. Or the church people go, we're doing our thing here. We don't do the whole physical thing. You can't connect. You can't separate them. It's connected. You just can't help it. Okay. So we need to attack that, because we are one body. And the heart doctor today doesn't talk to the psychiatrist. Psychiatrist doesn't talk to the chiropractor. The chiropractor doesn't talk to the OBGYN or the podiatrist. We all are on little islands talking to ourselves. And so there's no connection. An internal or family doctor, they used to be the hub where they kind of were in control of everything. They're so busy writing prescription drugs now that patients tell me all the time, I go in there and didn't even touch me. Nothing. The nurse came in, checked my blood pressure, did this, that. I was in a gown, I don't know why. And then they gave me a drug. And you go, that's not healthcare. Can you imagine if a factory had all the different departments and none of them talked to each other? What kind of products would they make? It would be chaos. And that's what we're feeling in the United States. Our healthcare system is in chaos. But again, there's answers. Air, dirt, and sunlight. There's answers. So hang on. We also, another thing is that we treat symptoms. Is blood pressure a disease or a symptom? It is? Okay. Don't raise your hands, but anybody on blood pressure medication, don't raise your hands. You're treating a symptom. Because you can ask your doctor, why is my blood pressure high? I don't know, but it's high, so we gotta lower it. Okay, well the body's saying something, and we're just covering it up. So now take your car, your oil light just turned on, and you take it to the car doctor, and the car doctor does all these fancy tests and everything like that, and he comes out and says, your oil light's on. And you go, I know, I brought it in because I have the oil light on. He goes, my insurance paid for me to tell me that I already knew my oil light was on. I know my blood pressure's up, and your blood pressure's up. Well, we need to turn the oil light off. But what's the problem? You would want to know that when you take your car, and yet you get an answer like, well, you're out of oil. Okay, let's put some oil in there. That's smart. But if the medical oil light doctor is going to say, let's put duct tape on top of the oil light so you don't see it anymore. And then, then you go out in the car and you go, oh, I don't see it. This is great. I'm cured. Going down the road. And then, you see you on 495 somewhere and your car is on smoke and you burnt your engine up. That's what's happening in our healthcare system. We're treating oil lights. You imagine how this goes over in front of the MDs. Headaches, and this is my profession, chiropractors come in. Oh, you got a headache? All right, Jim, bad headache. Let me give you an adjustment. Oh, my headache went away. I don't know why you had a headache. You could have had an aneurysm. You could have been having a bad meal that day. Maybe you didn't sleep really good. Maybe you had an argument with your wife. Maybe you lost your job. I don't know. There's stuff that could be good. So chiropractors, what we do is we're in the same thing. You got a pain, let's make the pain go away. Because we believe pain's bad, we got to make you feel good. Instead of going, why do you have a headache? This could be a big problem. Let's fix that, and then the headache will go away. But most people are brainwashed to think, well, just make my headache go away. Like, I'll be healthy then. I don't know. This could be a bad problem. Let's see what's going on. How about indigestion? It's an oil light. One of the biggest pharmaceutical things out there is all these antacid drugs, right? The thing is that when you put something in your stomach, it doesn't digest properly. Your stomach goes, well, I'll try to help out. I don't have digestive enzymes. I don't have this going on, so produce more acid. And the thing is, you could give somebody digestive enzymes because they're not producing enough, and then they don't need to be taking these drugs. But they don't know because it's just like, oh, you got gastric reflux, you need to take some antacids for the rest of your life. Have a nice day. It's a symptom, okay? Low T, low testosterone. Why is the testosterone low? A lot of reasons, okay? But hey, let's give you some testosterone injections. You'll feel great. Low thyroid. So many people are on Synthroid and all these other synthetic medications to make the thyroid improve its function. Why is the thyroid doing that? Obesity. Why did you get obese? What's going on in there? Because your body is supposed to be this. Something's wrong. Let's fix that. Instead of, let's give you some GLP-1s. Let's give you, let's actually put a thing on your stomach, the gastric bypass or the sleeve and all that stuff so you can't eat much. Is that healthy? Right? I don't know. Autoimmune disorders. This is a big one because it's starting, the chemicals that are in this stuff is messing with our immune system. And here's the thing. The immune system is being blamed for a crime it's not committing. Okay? Same thing with cholesterol. But hear me out on this. So your immune system is so smart. Do you realize that we have between 3 and 6 pounds of bacteria on our skin right now? 3 to 6 pounds of bacteria. on our skin, I saw a researcher one time said if we could take your body out and just leave the bacteria, I'd still go, oh, that's Jim. Because that's how much bacteria, you'd still be able to recognize him. And yet that bacteria is not killing us. It's not causing problems because our immune system is so amazing. It knows, foreign guy, let's kill it. It's doing that, right? When it doesn't do its job, you can get cancer because we're all producing cancerous cells. It's normal. Cancer's normal, okay? You get a wacky cell, that's cancer. But your immune system goes, hey, let's get rid of that. So it sends somebody over there. But if your immune system is asleep, we got to wake it up. Why is it asleep? Or if it's working too much, where the immune doctors are saying, sorry, Maggie, but your immune system flipped the switch and it's trying to kill you now. And you go, my immune system's not that dumb. I'm sorry, it's just not. I mean, it's taking care of 3 pounds of bacteria all the time. And this is why in my office in Roanoke, we didn't wear a mask. And I know it bothered some people, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I'm like, look, you got 3 pounds of bacteria on you. You don't put a mask on, it ain't gonna help. I'm sorry. Viruses are gonna get through. They get through openings. So they get through your eyes, your nose, and your mouth, and some other openings, which we won't talk about. But they can get through openings, right? So this mask isn't doing anything. But you say that to people and they go, you're not doing your part. And there goes the division. And because we're brainwashed. So again, I'm just talking about pure science facts. Okay, so the immune system knows that there's something bad inside your cell. So when you have a heavy metal or a virus or a parasite, here's your cell right here. It's not floating around like this. It gets into the cell. And now your immune system says, I want that thing out of the cell to get rid of it. So you get an immune response. So your immune system's doing the right thing. It says, look, this cell has got to go. So I can get this guy out and I can get rid of it, okay? But in the medical world, it's like, we got to stop your immune system from doing that so you can keep the crap inside your cell and be sick. That doesn't make sense to you all. Your immune system is taking care of a problem, but the thing is that we have heavy metals that are stuck inside the cell. There's lead, mercury, all that stuff. It's in these things. It is in high doses in vaccinations. And again, this is a lightning rod because there are people who are saying everybody get vaccinated, we'll be fine. There's mercury and lead and formaldehyde and all those things that are in there that are not good for us. And they get in our cells, and our immune system says, "Don't want this," and it starts to attack those cells. And then now all of a sudden we got all these autoimmune disorders going around. That's crazy. Now, I don't want everybody leaving here and going, you know what, I'm not taking this anymore, I'm not doing that, and tell my kids that don't do that, okay? You got to get yourself healthy. And there is a process, and that's what we do in my office, and I get calls all the time. It's got to be done smart, okay? You can get yourself really, really sick by doing healthy things. And I'm like, kudos, you're doing good, but you got to do it the right way. Don't go crazy. You need to have an expert. And I'm not saying me, but there are plenty of functional medicine people around out there now, which is more of my focus now, because chiropractic has kind of gone its own way too. I still do it, but I like to go, well, hey, what's wrong with you? Let's figure it out. And maybe chiropractic is part of that. Maybe it's not. But let's see. So we're almost ready for all the good stuff. Parasites. Is anybody, no, don't do this. Anybody want to raise your hand and say, I know I got parasites. Except 95% of us have parasites. Okay, so there's only 5% in this room that don't. Okay, and you might want to say, well, I'm in the 5%. Because we all want to say that, right? If something's 98% this, it's like, I'm probably in the 2%. You're probably in the 95%. I'm just saying, okay? And here's some gross stuff that you just really need to know. Because parasites are very, very bad. They're toxic. Symptoms of parasite infection may include gastrointestinal issues like diarrhea, constipation, bloating, gas, abdominal pain or nausea, fatigue, weakness, low energy, weight loss or weight gain, skin issues such as rashes, itching, especially anal itching, hives, nutritional deficiencies. An example of that is anemia from hookworms, joint or muscle pain, and neurological symptoms like irritability, angst, anxiety, and sleep disturbances. In severe cases, parasites like tapeworms and protozoa can cause organ damage, fever, or allergic reactions. During parasite cleanse, as parasites die and are expelled, they release the release of debris and toxins known as die-off, or the Herxheimer reaction, can intensify or mimic these symptoms, including bloating, diarrhea, constipation, flu-like symptoms such as fatigue, headaches, body aches, skin breakouts, itching, brain fog, mood swings, irritability, and temporary worsening of all your symptoms. These effects typically subside when you start to clear the toxins. Here's something that parasites, they're smart, okay? They get in us because they need a host. They don't want to die, okay? So they lay eggs. And so they're trying to colonize and stuff. And they get into our heart. They get into everywhere. One of the highest concentrations, believe it or not, is the eyes. So, and I was blown away by this with a patient who had this intense eye pain, just MRI, CAT scan, everything, stroke, ruled all that stuff out. Couldn't find anything wrong. Anyway, eventually found out full of parasites in the eye. Just pressure was just killing them. But parasites, when you kill them by eating super healthy, they're gonna die, okay? And when they die, they go, all right, if I'm gonna die, I'm taking a bunch of you with me. So they don't just kind of die, they explode. And they release all their eggs and all their toxins. So that's why you feel like you got the flu. And this is where people who are like, you know what, I'm exercising, I'm eating good, I've changed my diet, I'm doing all this stuff, I'm praying, and I feel terrible. They're going through a Herxheimer reaction. Their liver, they're cleaning out, and their body's just got all these toxins in there. So that's why I'm saying be careful with this, because you can make yourself really, really sick and just go, you know, screw this. I was healthier when I was 50 pounds overweight. I felt better. I'm done. You know, it's just a reaction. You'll get through it. But I wanted to bring a glass and just coat it with mud and stuff like that in there, and just, you know, take some of my nice fresh water and say, you know, I'm going to stop drinking this stuff and pour it in. And like, no, like you kind of want to do that with your body. Is you want to clean out the heavy metals, the toxins, the parasites, clean them out so that when you put the good stuff in, it's going to be better. It's like cleaning a nice cup, okay? And you're going to put the healthy stuff in there. So again, you know, just a plug for any of your functional medicine people around this area. A lot of people after the class will come up and say, hey, you taking patients? I mean, I can do things like that through Zoom, so it's fine. And I can share, if you wanted to know, this is not for patients. I'm just saying, do it right. You have somebody who knows what they're doing so you don't get sick. But those parasites need to go, and you could be in the 5% and you could be lucky, but I'm pretty sure you're not. Okay, here comes some good stuff. What's our number one nutrient? Absolute top of the list, number one nutrient. You have to have this or you're in trouble.
Water.
Water? It's up there. Protein? Okay, what else? I know you guys are gonna go, oh, trick question. Okay, you can live, different people say it's between 30 and 45 days without food. And yet we spend a lot of time on food, right? But you can live, say, a month without food, okay? Water. You can live between 7 and 11 days without water. So that's important. It's actually more important than food, okay? Air. Oxygen. You can only live a few minutes without it. So oxygen is our number one nutrient. So has anybody ever taught you how to breathe? Probably not, okay? Here's some, and you're like, well, I've been breathing for 61 years. I'm pretty good at it, right? There's ways of breathing that is for health purposes. And back in the 60s and 70s, you know, all these people that were doing yoga and these breathing things, we all made fun of them. I know we did as interns. We were like, you know, but a lot of their processes, like, wow, that was really good. And now we have science that's what's happening. They didn't know that's what was going on, but they were practicing things that's been around for thousands of years. We were just like, we're sophisticated contemporary medical people. We're smarter than people who've been doing this for thousands of years, But if you're going to have an emotion like happy, joy, arousal, calm, you have to have oxygen in your system to express those particular emotions. So high oxygen levels, you have high emotional responses. Guess what? If you have really low oxygen levels, those are expressed through depression, and anger, and anxiety, and fear. So if you're feeling any of those, what's probably your best treatment right away? Breathe. Okay, I love this when I see a mom like in the mall or something and their kid's going ape, they're just upset. And the mother will sometimes shake them and just go, breathe. And like, that's right. It's like instinctive. It's like, just, you'll stop doing this panic thing if you just breathe. It's in us, but we think, okay, Johnny's got ADD or ADHD. We got to bring him to the doctor, put him on some drugs, blah, blah, blah. No, he's not breathing. Get him breathing, and then he'll express the good emotions. So oxygen is really important. So let's see. Mitochondria. We've all heard of that. Go back to our biology classes. You're probably big time. So mitochondria is the energy engine of the cell, and it needs lots of oxygen in there to make ATP. ATP is the only energy that we need in our body. It's what everybody thinks it's protein, carbohydrates, fats, all that stuff. Interesting tidbit. None of that stuff is our fuel source. This is crazy. None of it is. There's nothing that you put into your body that you use in its original form to burn as energy. Nothing. It has to be converted. So think about this. We don't take crude oil out of the ground and put it into our gas tank. It has to be converted into gasoline. Then you put it in the gas tank, and the gas tank says, oh, I recognize this fuel source. The only fuel source we recognize is ATP. That's it. But we need to manufacture ATP. As a matter of fact, if you were to take your body weight is 10% mitochondria, which, 200-pound guy, that means I have 20 pounds of mitochondria trying to run my body. That's a lot. And they're little teeny, organelles in there. But they're making oxygen. Oxygen is in there helping to make our ATPs. So breathing is super important. So shallow breathing. You think this lady right here was a shallow breather? She's got her rib cage. So you see people like that, right? And if you could get them to sit up straight and breathe, you would notice that their mental clarity comes back. You notice they digest food better, they sleep better. It's not just, this doesn't look good. It is actually killing you because you're shallow breathing. When you shallow breathe, and guess what we're breathing out? CO2, right? Is that healthy for us or toxic? CO2 is toxic. So you shallow breathe, you're breathing back in some CO2 that you try to get rid of. You're breathing back that stuff back in. So you can't shallow breathe. And I'm going to teach you a little breathing routine that you can start right away. Cancer hates oxygen. So cancer is anaerobic. For it to propagate, for it to multiply, it needs you to not have much oxygen in there. So if you have a cancer diagnosis, I'm not saying don't go to your cancer doctor. Do all what you need to do, but start some breathing, because then you'll freak out the cancer doctor and say, your tumors are shrinking, or your markers are gone, or I've had hundreds of patients go, they can't find any cancer in me anymore. Yeah, because your body fixed it. Because that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to do miracles. You just got to get it breathing. So everybody here, put your hands on your belly. Now, you want to take a deep breath. And when I say deep breath, most everybody will breathe up here, because we live in a stress pool. We marinate in stress. And when you're running at the end of the race, you're not going to be belly breathing. Right, Noel? You're going to be you're breathing up here, or you're swimming, you're breathing up here. But down here is where all the magic happens, okay? So if you take a deep breath and you don't feel your belly extend, you're probably breathing up here. And that's just going right into all this toxic stuff. So when you breathe in, it should look like, so the way to do that, you literally have to kind of like push your stomach muscles out. And if you have to do it at first, because some of you will be really hard going, I can't do it. I've had people just can't do it. And you can lay down in the morning in bed and just, push your stomach out and then try to breathe into it. So push that stomach out. Now, this is a full breath, because I'll take 2. Now I really filled my lungs with a ton of oxygen. So here's a routine you can do. Now, try to do this every day, and you should try to get to 30 breaths. 30. If you haven't been doing it, don't do it. Definitely do it sitting down or laying down, because you're going to get lightheaded. Because your brain's going to go, wow, I got all this oxygen. It's amazing. It's going to trip a lot of those neurotransmitter receptors in your brain that drug people want us addicted to, all these drugs, like heroin and all, and they want to get in there into our brain, and they give you that buzz. Well, you can give yourself a buzz by just giving yourself oxygen, because your brain's like, wow, I feel good. This is great. And now you just charged your mitochondria. It's incredible. So I would say start with 5 breaths instead of 30, but do 3 rounds of it. And this is how it would go. You take in one of those big breaths, fill in here, and then just let it out. And then another one, let it out. Do 5 of them. On the 5th breath, let it out and all out, and hold your breath out for as long as possible. At first, you'll panic, okay? At 20 seconds, you'll be like, I gotta breathe, okay? Go ahead and breathe, all right? I can hold my breath out now for over 2 minutes after letting all my air out. It's taken months of doing that, but remember, I was a swimmer, so I got some big lungs. But it was like 20, 30 seconds when I first started doing it. I was a little panicky. That's okay, just take a breath in, and then start your next 5, so you're getting oxygen in there. And then again, on the 5th one, hold it out as long as you can. Kind of look at the clock, because you want to see yourself improving over time. You will be able to get to a minute. Everybody in this room, I promise you, you'll be able to get to a minute, and you'll be like, no way. Because some of you at 10 seconds are going to be like, I gotta breathe, okay? You're doing that, and then the 3rd round, same thing. On the 5th breath, let it out, and then hold it as long as possible, and then take a few good breaths afterwards. The reason for doing that, it's called the Wim Hof method. It's one of like hundreds of breathing techniques. But this actually causes you to get oxygen in your system, and then when you're hold it out, CO2 builds up, which, remember, that's toxic, right? But it's a vasodilator. So all of your blood vessels go, they're open, and they're saying, give me oxygen. I mean, everywhere, your fingertips, in your brain, in your toenails, everything is now having vasodilation, so that when you start breathing more oxygen in, it's going right in there. So you can get yourself, if you're having an anxiety attack, you're feeling depressed, you can knock yourself right out. You just stimulate your vasodilation, and then put some great oxygen in there. And try to do that every day. Now, I do it once a day, but a lot of time, I have a pretty stressful job. Sometimes at lunchtime, I do it again. And before I go to bed at night, I do a slightly different breath work at bed at night. Bed at night, you don't want to hold your breath. At night, I'll do like 10 breaths. They're just full breath in and full breath out. And then just think happy thoughts or praying or whatever, just thinking something good. And 10 breaths in, and then let it out as long as you can, okay? If you can let it out longer than it takes you to breathe in, you're flipping your vagal nerve, which gets a little technical, but vagal nerve is your calming. The vagal nerve is responsible for reproduction, digesting food, your immune system, healing, all the good stuff. You want that vagal nerve to just be working with you. So you're getting ready to go to sleep at night, Let's get that vagal nerve turned on. Get 10 really good breath in, and then let it out as long as you can. And you should be able to breathe. If it takes me 3 seconds to breathe in, I can let my air out for about 12, 14 seconds. And you're just turning that vagal nerve on, and you'll be like, wow. I mean, you can take a very busy brain and just chill yourself out. So, but sometime in the morning, you get up and try to do 3 sets, start with 5, then get good at it and do 10, 15, go all the way up to 30. When you can do 3 sets of 30, you can email me and you're going to tell me, my skin looks better, and I'm digesting food better. My gums don't bleed when I'm flossing. It's gonna be amazing because you're turbocharging your energy level system, the ATPs, in every cell in your body. So that's a game changer right there. You had a question?
What was the name of that breathing method?
WIM, W-I-M, and then the last name is Hof, H-O-F. You have a blast. You can put that on YouTube and see all types of breathing stuff. But this one is excellent just for overall health, to get your cells oxygenated. So let's see. And just remember, I wouldn't do it standing up because at first you're going to be lightheaded. I tried to do it in the shower to kind of do most of my time. And I was like, whoa, you get a little lightheaded. Okay. What is the human body made of? You were to break it down into chemicals. Water. Dirt. Yeah. We're made, and a lot of water. Okay. But yeah, the chemical compounds, it's identical to dirt. Okay. And again, this is a Bible study, but I just love God's word because it's always accurate. God's word's always being proved by science. It's not the other way around. But when you go back into Genesis, God formed man, Adam, out of dirt. And then what did he do? He breathed into oxygen. So pretty cool. So there is one researcher that I love. He came up with this thing. The presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. Kind of true, because cancer hates oxygen. You can kill cancer with oxygen. So just get as much oxygen in your body as you can. So kind of makes sense. You go back and look and go, we were formed out of dirt and we had oxygen put in us. And you know what the cause of death for every single thing that's ever happened to us, accident, infection, something that kills you, the actual cause of death is hypoxia, which means lack of oxygen. As soon as you have oxygen lacking in your brain, you stop producing brain activity, you're considered dead. So it doesn't matter what gets you there, we're all dying of hypoxia. And I had somebody at the last class, like, I feel like I'm suffocating. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but this is how we're all gonna go. But one of the things that fights that is air. Keep breathing. Because while you're breathing, you're getting oxygen in there, and that's the number one thing you can fight against death, fight against disease, fight against everything. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, it all. Breathing. And we came from the dirt. So how does that fit in? Some of you probably talked to a few of you, and if you've been in the last class, and anybody heard of what's called grounding? Grounding, okay. So some, construction workers, that you got to ground a building. Because you get an electrical system out there. If you go in the building, you just fry it. So that electrical, it goes out and grounds into the earth. So we came from the earth. We need to ground in the earth. We're electrical beings. Our brain creates an electrical frequencies, okay? We got electrical nodes in our heart, right? So that's why if you get electrocuted, not a good thing, because you short circuit your nerve system and you're dead, right? So we got to ground. But why is it so important to ground? You guys, a smart crowd, most of you have been shaking your heads. You've heard of free radicals? Free radicals are these, the worst one in our body is called the hydroxyl free radical. It's an OH, a minus OH molecule. So oxygen and hydrogen minus. It's in the mitochondria. As you're making ATP, it's a byproduct. But if you ground, it's an electron on there. So you got this little charged molecule that's looking to pair with somebody because it's got this extra electron. So it's bouncing around in there, hitting blood vessels, causing nicks in there, and it's bad, okay? But if we get barefoot in the ground, not on a pavement, it's got to be dirt, sand, or grass. You immediately, and everybody has felt this before, you go to the beach, whether you like the beach or not, you put your feet in the sand, there's this thing. We're connected with the dirt that we were made from. And we release this electrical stuff we ground it. And it takes that free radical out. It's kind of neat. But we have all these fancy shoes, and we don't get outside much anymore, and we don't have to garden anymore. We go to the store, so we're not getting in the dirt. So, but the good news is this: you only need to put your feet in the dirt for about 10 minutes to get a full effect, 24 hours of discharging. So that's not bad. So a little thing I do: get in the morning, I'm grounding and I'm breathing. So it takes me about 10 minutes. See, Maggie, thanks for coming. So it only takes about 10 minutes. And I know it sounds long, but you're like, oh, I can fit this in. But literally, it's free. So get yourself barefoot, and people always ask me, in the winter too? Yeah, in the winter too. And it's tough, okay? I'm not saying it's easy, but do this, and you'll notice that you're connected with your source. And that all that hydroxyl free radical will come out of your body, and you'll have a good effect for a whole 24 hours. So just make it part of your daily thing, kind of like brushing your teeth, okay? So you can kill two birds with one stone.
Can it be grass or something dirt?
Grass, dirt, or sand. I actually got a question yesterday because we were walking on the Potomac. Like, can you go out in the water? Well, yeah, you can go out in the water and stick your feet in. There's ground there. That's probably even better because we're made of water.
Just maybe why we all love sitting on the beach with our feet in the sand.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can go there and be all uptight, and all of a sudden you're just like, it feels good. And you can get that every day. Just get out in some grass somewhere and just sit there and do your breathing exercises and be thankful for something and control this guy. So now here's the real medical reason behind it is red blood cells. Red blood cells carry oxygen, okay? And they tend to get a buildup on the membrane of this free radical. So some of them are positive charged now, and now you got this negative charged, blood cell. What happens when you get a positive and a negative together? They clump. We don't want clumping with our blood cells, do we? Because now you can develop clots, which is high on the list of heart disease. So what happens is when you discharge that, all the membranes become the same charge. So you take a negative and negative, they don't go together. So now you got all this surface area for the red blood cells to get more oxygen in, exchange more waste product, get more nutrition into the cells, and then it can dump it off at where it needs to go. But you get this clumping, now you get less surface area. So you could take somebody who's kind of dragging, I'm dragging, and then you draw blood from them and it's a little thick, and you just go, you need a ground. And they're like, you're weird. Right? But now there's a scientific reason for grounding because it charges your cell membranes the same charge. So you discharge that. It just makes sense, okay? But remember, it's not in line with the world right now. This is good for it. You got a little bit of it. It's like somebody told me the other day, they were like, I only had 2 sodas. I usually have 6. And I'm like, well, that's great. You only had 2 hand grenades. That's it. I mean, instead of 6, right? But they still blew up. But, it's not 6. And they chuckle too. And it's like, oh, you're so difficult. I'm like, I'm not. I'm just telling you the truth. Okay? All right, food supply. Oh, I lied to you. I'm going to tell you some more bad news. Anybody heard of the whole Roundup thing? Glyphosates. Glyphosates are bad chemicals, neurotoxins, terrible stuff. Glyphosates are being sprayed on all of our crops. Now, here's the good with glyphosate, what was intended to it. It literally pushes away all the pests, and it kind of acts like an antibiotic. So you're not getting a lot of bacteria, growth inside the plants. Okay, good theory, right? But the thing is it kills all the good stuff too, because we have probiotics, good bacteria. That's the reason why we eat. We eat food to feed our bacteria. We don't eat food because we need this nutrition. That's where we take crude oil and turn it into gasoline. We eat protein so our bacteria will convert it into amino acids. We actually need amino acids. We don't really need protein. We need amino acids, and our bacteria convert it. So we're feeding our bacteria. Well, glyphosates are killing all our bacteria. So we can't, even though we have a healthy diet, we're going, man, I get bloating. It's because glyphosates are in everything. And if you're like eating organic, free range, and all that stuff, do the best you can. There is still some in there because you can't help it. It's sprayed. It's going to get in there, and the organic, laws are a certain amount is still okay because we can't seem to get it out of our system. We've sprayed it so much, but we've killed all that healthy bacteria in the soils. So even though you're eating great foods, it's not what it used to be like in the 1970s. So you're going to have to, and this isn't a plug for doing anything with me. This is why you're going to have some targeted, specific supplementation, because you're not going to get the nutrients that you need to feed your bacteria to make your building blocks. You're just not, okay? And there was a hunter, I was reading this medical journal, who came across an old dead elk in the woods somewhere. And he was examining this elk, and it died of old age. And he looked, and all of its teeth were in place, and good, healthy teeth. And you go, well, that was probably a healthy elk, right? It was a wild elk. But all the milk cows that we have, they all lose their teeth because they eventually, they've been pushed with all these chemicals and stuff, and they're sitting there milking all day long for years and years and years. They lose their teeth, they're not healthy, and then they start giving them a mixture of soybeans and modified cornstarch, corn syrup. That's their diet. That's what's going in them, and so they're all diabetic when they die. Our milking cows. So that's the milk that we're drinking. So be careful with that kind of stuff. There is an A2 milk. I don't know if you've seen it on the shelves. That's the kind of milk you should get if you're going to be using milk. Anyway, that's a whole another lecture. Then there's the seed oils. You're going to go home and you're going to be like, oh, what am I going to do? Seed oils, you've heard seed oils are bad. Everybody? Okay. Well, here's the reason why they're bad. They're actually not bad for you. It's the way they're processed. Because seed oils have some good, healthy fats in them. But all of the seed oils, we're talking sunflower, grapeseed, canola, soybean, corn, cottonseed, safflower seed, and there's rice bean oil. When they press them, the oil comes out gummy, and it sticks in the machines. So they use a chemical called hexane to make it degummed, okay? And hexane is a neurotoxin. It's responsible for and linked to Alzheimer's, premature aging, peripheral neuropathies, brain disorders. It's found in glues, paints, and chemicals to develop film, hexane. And we put that in the oil, okay? Because we don't want to have gummy oil, okay? So, but now we're putting that neurotoxin in there. And then after that happens, the oils get rancid. And if you want to smell a rancid oil, you can come on up here and smell that, and you're like, ugh, they're rancid. So none of us want to buy smelly oils, so they have to heat them to over 400 degrees. Usually it's like 450 degrees. There's no life at 450 degrees, so they kill everything that's in the oil that would have been good for us. But it also kills the odor. So good. So they're not gummy anymore, but they have hexane in here. It's a neurotoxin, and it has it's been killed pretty much, every bit of nutrition in it. But then it's cloudy, And in America, we don't want to buy cloudy oil because it doesn't look good. So they put sodium hydroxide in it, which declouds it and makes it, if you go down the aisle, and next time you'll see all the different oils. They're all beautiful gold, pure colors because we like that. And remember, Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds, food colorings and everything, it was attractive to us. Cloudy, we wouldn't buy it. So that's in there, except it is a known carcinogen. So sodium hydroxide it's an alkali, so it can burn your throat. You can get throat cancers, all kinds of really neat stuff with that. I won't go into that. Respiratory issues. So seed oils, stay away from them, okay? Oils that you can do is cold-pressed virgin olive oil, cold-pressed virgin coconut oil, avocado oil, but make sure it's virgin cold-pressed. It's not heated, and it just, on the ingredients, it just has the oil. It doesn't have hexane, doesn't have any of that stuff in there. And they also have higher heat. You can cook with them and they don't turn to trans fats. Another whole lecture, but just simply put, they're in everything. You're going to find soybean oils in there, all the stuff. So anything that has the oils in it, read the labels and just put it away. Okay, and if there's chemicals on there, chemical names, just put it away. Because those are things that R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris put in there to make us addicted. And the FDA, which we thought was this organization to protect us, right? If it says FDA approved, we all go, okay, that's good, right? So the FDA operates on a single dose toxicity level. What that means is you take a little bit of hexane and sodium hydroxide, whatever, in one dose, and we analyze you and go, no, she's still healthy. It's good. Single dose. Except the rest of the world operates on a cumulative dose, which means if you do this every day for 4 or 5 years, you're full of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, everything. Okay? So the FDA is being revamped right now. Hopefully it's going to change, but to go back to protecting us, right now, you'd be surprised who owns the FDA, but it's a lot of these companies donate lots of money in there to be able to say, it's a single dose. You're okay. A little bit of poison at one time is not going to hurt you, which is true. But you do it every day, and it's in all kinds of products, it's going to hurt you. GMOs, genetically modified organisms, that means it's not in nature. So my niece is, I love her, but she's kind of a pain in the rear end because she can't eat anything. So we have holidays, and it's always like, we're having this great big meal, we gotta make something for Nikki, because she can't touch anything, whatever. She just got Crohn's disease, irritable bowel disorder, she's got diverticulitis. She's only in her 20s, she's jacked up. And it feels so bad for her. It was like anything, she's always sick. She just got back from Italy 2 months ago with her mom and sister, and they had a blast. And she goes, Uncle Pat, I ate pasta. I ate bread. I had wine. I didn't have a single problem. Because they operate off of cumulative dose over there. So none of this glyphosates, none of this chemicals are in breads and pastas and all stuff that we've been told we can't have. But we can digest that stuff. It's just the chemicals that hurt us. So she's blown away. So literally, her and her husband, they make a little bit of money, which is good. They're importing flour and all kinds of stuff from Italy and making foods at home. And she's like loving life. She's like, this is like, I got my life back. This is amazing. But she can't eat this junk here in the US. So GMOs, bad news. Anybody who's, in Russia, which we think we're better than Russia, right? We're talking Russia, right? It's a felony in Russia to have any of these chemicals in their food. A felony. Like, that's Russia. I'm like, wait a minute. We should be ahead of Russia. Okay. Another thing that I want you to look at on the label is cyanocobalamin. Cyanocobalamin. It's synthetic B12, so it can say fortified or enriched. You see fortified or enriched on the label, put it down. Okay, it's synthetic. Cyanocobalamin. Cyano came from cyanide gas. okay? They used cyanide gas in the Holocaust. That's what killed millions of people. They gassed them with cyanide gas. So they take cyanide gas and they combine it with cobalt, which is a metal. You take those two together and it makes cyanocobalamin, which it looks like B12, but it's literally a nerve gas and metal. And it's in lots of food. All of these stinking sports drinks and these energy drinks that kids are drinking, you look at it, it's fortified, enriched with cyanocobalamin, it's B12, it's good for them. It is a nerve gas and metal, not good. So run away from cyanocobalamin. You want real B12. Folic acid is another one. Anybody heard of folic acid? That's B9. Again, it's artificial. When I said our number one nutrient that we need is oxygen, this is the number one nutrient that's in the food supply, because they spray folic acid on all the crops, because back in the 1970s, they figured out that women would have birth defects, neural tube defects, that's when the brain and spinal cord were developing, if they didn't have methylfolate, which is B9. You can convert folic acid into methylfolate in your liver and your intestines. You can do that, except 50% of the population doesn't have that gene to be able to methylate folic acid. So 50%, take, you're either you got it or you don't, okay? When I did my gene test, I got the gene, so I can't methylate. And I've noticed over the years, you know, that I've had, wow, this is going on, which means anything that requires B9 in my system, which B9, when you methylate, you take tryptophan, which is an amino acid, and B9, methylated B9 in your intestine, you make serotonin. Anybody know what serotonin is? It's the neurotransmitter that gives us happiness. As I've gotten older, I got a little more grumpy and going, I don't want to be, but now that I looked at my gene test and go, oh, daggone it, no wonder why. I eat healthy, I do these things. I can't eat folic acid because it's going to cause a problem. So I look at the label, fuck, I can't do it. It'll mess me up because I can't methylate it. And then also, I have to have methylated, it's called 5-tetramethylfolate. That's the actual usable form that your bacteria would actually convert it into that form to be able to make serotonin. And you think that the medical world will be on top of that, except that I'm sure somebody in this room or somebody knows somebody who's on an SSRI, serotonin selective reuptake inhibitor, which here's the philosophy on this. It's going to drive you crazy, but they're going to say, look, you don't have much serotonin in your system. So we want to reserve as much serotonin as possible. So we want to selectively reuptake that so that you can't use it. Okay, so because you don't have much left, we don't want to use it and you'll be out none. So, but what that does is it numbs out the brain neuro, so they literally are like, I still feel like, you know, unhappy, but I don't care. You know, they'll say, you know, I used to be suicidal, but not anymore, but I don't care. And that's what selective reuptake inhibitors do. Here's the philosophy on it. So you're in a war, and this army over here is kicking butt, and then your army's over here, you know, down to 25%. And we're going out to battle tomorrow. They're fully staffed, and you're down to 25%. And you say, okay, guys, half of you have to stay home tomorrow, and the other half, you guys go fight this huge army. They're gonna get slaughtered. But the good news medically is that we saved some of you, okay? That's not smart. You should go, we only have 20, how can we build the army up? We need tryptophan, amino acid. We need methylated B9 in there, and over months, you will get plenty of serotonin, and you'll notice, I feel like myself again. I've noticed my continence is so much better since I've been using the genetics. So that's one of the things that I do that probably separates me, is as a patient comes in, I do a genetic test on everybody that comes in, and it's something we can do, Zoom, but order the test, it comes back, 46-page report on how you methylate or don't methylate, how you assimilate vitamin D or how you don't. It's all nutritional stuff. And you look at it and just go, that's me. And you go, okay, this is what we got to work with. It's so much fun. Because then not that I don't care, but it doesn't matter if you got cancer, diabetes, whatever. It's like, okay, you got all those things. You're breaking down, obviously. I'm not going to chase all those things because those are oilites. What we're going to do is we're going to fix your internal structures because this is how you're made. And this is how I was made. I can cry about it, but I still methylate B9. I mean, I can, fuss all day long. I mean, I have to wear glasses to read. I go, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not wearing them. I got to, because same thing. I have to take a methylated B9, but it's neat to know. So now for athletes, it's really cool because you can see how their structure is designed for like what sport would be best suited for them, because you can see their genetic potential on their muscle fibers. It's pretty cool. So you can well, you should be distance, you should be a sprinter, and so you get the athlete who's like, I really want to do marathons. And you're like, not going to work for you. You should be a power lifter or play football or something like that. That's fun because then the athlete's not frustrated trying to do something. The coach is trying to make them do it. Like, look, that body type is not going to, genetically speaking, this is it. Okay, so that's fun. We could go into the other neurotransmitters, but dopamine's another big one. But rounding things out, sunlight. So we talked about oxygen. We talked about dirt. And now sunlight. Why is sunlight so important for us? Because it creates a single vitamin. What is that vitamin? Vitamin D. Specifically vitamin D3. D3 is the usable form. It's called calciferol. You have precursors of calciferol. It's not usable. It's floating around in there. You can get a blood test back and say, oh, your D levels are fine. What D level did you check? Was it D3? 5, blah, 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 called calciferol. If it's that, great. If it wasn't, they just checked your overall D level and it could be really low. So again, those are things that I had to learn out in the field all these years, and you think they would teach us this in school. But it's the only vitamin that we make in the human body. That's it, the only one. Every other one we have to eat. So it must be really important because that's how God created us. We have to have D3. D3 is in every single hormone. D3 is in every single neurotransmitter. D3 is in every single cell membrane. And you've got 32 trillion cells, and if they're lacking D3, then your cell membrane is not good. So pretty much everybody in this room, go home and take a D3 supplement, period. Just do it. That's one that probably everybody should be on. How do we make D3? Skin exposure, sunlight, hits cholesterol molecules in the skin, creates D3. Cholesterol is important. And we're lowering cholesterol like crazy because it's bad. We have bad cholesterol. No, there's no bad cholesterol. Here's a little rundown on cholesterol. So you have, when your sugar levels go up, which is all from this stuff and everything that we're doing and all the chemicals, sugar levels go up. When sugar levels go up, triglycerides, which are fats, go up to try to counterbalance the sugar. So triglycerides is a fuel source. We can burn it. Cholesterol doesn't burn, despite what anybody's told you. You can't burn cholesterol off. And you make 85% of your cholesterol. So if you cut cholesterol out of your diet completely, what your doctor says, we gotta get your cholesterol. You can't eat this, 15% decrease, that's it. 15. 85%, you're still making it. So wrong attention, okay? And the question should be, why is my cholesterol up? Cholesterol goes up to try to get rid of the triglyceride and lower the sugar. Because that's the problem, okay? So if you're just lowering cholesterol, bad. What happens is the cholesterol tries to divide and become smaller molecules, and you notice that LDL is bad. Really, HDL is a big cholesterol molecule, when it notices it's got to do this, it'll split and make LDL, which is smaller, and then it'll go into VLDL, which is very low density lipid. And the smaller you get, the more it can cause issues. But it is trying to fix a problem. And again, just like the immune system, we're shutting the immune system down when it's trying to get parasites and stuff out of our system. We're shutting cholesterol down when it's trying to help out. And it's like, hey, you guys are losing, but, come on over here and, like, don't do anything. And you're like, wait a minute, it's causing, you can look at the research and see more people who are on cholesterol-lowering drugs are having more heart disease, more strokes and all that stuff. And you're going, wait a minute, that's the thing that's supposed to help all that. But that doesn't get reported. All right, and then, one last thing on the methylation. Methylation of everything we put in our body through bacteria, it needs to turn into a usable form. Most everybody here knows I Love Lucy. When I said that, I'm sure there was one scene that popped in your head. Which one was it?
Chocolates.
Yeah, that's it. It's the chocolate factory. Her and Ethel, they were on the chocolate factory, and the conveyor belt's coming out with the chocolates, and it's moving at a pace, and they're doing their thing and wrapping around, and then it speeds up, and they're like, grabbing them, sticking them in their bras, and they're eating some of them, and it just goes crazy, and then it just falls apart. The point I read about that is like, your intestine is 30 feet long, and it is a conveyor belt, and it's got to have a normal pace. Methylation of the vitamins keeps your pace on track. So if you're constipated or diarrhea, you're having irritable bowel stuff, you're having some kind of pace problem, more than likely, you should get the gene test and see if you're methylating. If you're not methylating like me, you got a 50% chance that's probably you. You put methylation in there, and your conveyor belt goes normal, and you don't have to stuff chocolates in your bra, just like that scene. But can you imagine if a factory, was doing parts for a car, and all of a sudden it's sped up, and I didn't get that one. The whole product's going to be a mess. So again, that's the plug to get a genetic test to see if you're methylating, and really you got a 50% chance it's probably happening. So it's not necessarily you. Again, I steal all my stuff from everybody. I never really had an original thought. I just ask questions and try to put stuff together. But it's not something that has happened to you. It's something that's happening in you. Let that sink in, because we think, diabetes, it happened to me. Nobody on this planet has ever said, oh, he's diabetic, don't sit next to him because you're going to catch diabetes. He's got heart disease, you don't go near him because you're not going to catch it that way. It's happening in you, not to you. You can blame it on all this stuff, but we have an amazing body, a self-regulating, healing body, that we should be able to handle all this stuff, okay? So, and it's just a matter of putting the right pieces together. And then kind of the last thing, we're gonna talk about genes and then thoughts, and we're done. But genes, very confusing. Are you if you have a gene, say, your sugars, you don't process sugars, right? Or me, methylation. Am I screwed? This is my genes. I can't help it. Genes run the show. Anybody want to say genes run the show? Some of you are afraid too, because I'm trying to set you up. Genes don't run the show. But the pharmaceutical world wants us to believe that genes run the show, because if you have a diabetic gene or you have an alcohol gene, you need a drug. Problem is that genes are blueprints. So that's all they are. And if you're a builder, you know that blueprints don't do anything. We could sit the blueprint out on that field over there and come back in 2 months and go, where's the house? You need the general contractors got to go get the supplies, do the stuff, and then they'll build off of that. That's all our genes are. That's it. So they're just sitting there. Something has to tell the gene, what to do, and it'll do it. So if you've got a sugar issue or you're a methylating issue, you can take nutritional things to to counteract those things, but you just got to know what they are. So you don't have to just go, oh, I'm screwed. No, there's plenty of nutritional stuff that you can do workarounds. It's just kind of nice to know, like we can't dig too deep over there because the water level's whatever. Well, then we're just going to do a flat, a pad instead of going down and doing a basement. So the blueprint, might say it's got a basement, and you go, well, we can't put a basement there because there's water. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but if we can find out. So genes are just blueprints. So don't let anybody tell you, especially in the medical world, your dad had diabetes, your uncles have it, you're just going to get it. No, absolutely not. We're going to find out what's going on inside you, and we're going to counteract that so that you don't turn the diabetic gene on. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I want people to feel armed with some good information instead of like, oh my gosh, this is just going to happen to me. It doesn't have to happen. We have so much genes in us. DNA, if you were to take out of every 32 trillion cells, stretch it one DNA cell all the way up at 6 foot tall, one cell, and you stack them one on top of the other, it goes all the way to the moon and back 500 trips. That's how much DNA is in your body. And it's programmed in there to say, okay, you're going to have blue eyes, and you're going to do this, and this is going to be your predisposition and all. And it's running your body. It's so much, and it's not an accident. We're not we didn't just come out from goop and turn. It is so complex, and there had to be a designer. So that's how much DNA, and you're like, wow, that's incredible. We have 63,000 miles of blood vessels in our body. 63,000 miles. And you go, wait, that's crazy. 30 feet of intestines. It's mind-boggling what's inside us. This is kind of fun. You got any hunters in the group? You hunted, no?
I'm good.
You have you ever faced one of these guys?
No.
So I've had hunters who've said they've been this close to a grizzly. And I was like, what did your body do? And they'll tell me, they're like, my heart was pounding, respiration went up, and I'll tell you, and your cholesterol went up almost 400%. And you go, why would that happen? Well, your brain knows if you get mauled by a bear, you want your blood to be sticky. So I've seen people in stretchers after being mauled by bears, and you go, I don't know why they're alive. But their cholesterol level went way up so that they don't bleed out. Because you get hit here, you're done. That's why instinctively, when I ask people, a bear's chasing you, you don't go, hey bear. You go like this. Why? Because you got to protect this. And sad thing is, that's a protective posture. Okay, turtles pull their head in because they're scared. So when you see grandma, walking around like that, she's had a rough life. The best thing you could do to heal is just go over and give her a hug and just go, how you doing today? And you could just see people, their cholesterol levels go down. It's amazing. Anyway, so this right in here, when your brain doesn't know the difference between a real stress or imagined stress, it doesn't know the difference. That's why when you have a vivid dream, you wake up and like, oh my God, I want to tell you this dream. Someone was chasing me, and right, and your respiration went up, your heart went up, your cholesterol went up. All that stuff happened, and it thought that it was real, but it wasn't real. So you got to be careful what you're thinking. Okay, that's important, because if you're thinking about stress all the time, your heart goes up, your blood pressure goes up, all that stuff, because your brain doesn't know that the real stress is not there. You're just ruminating in it. Okay, so that's a good reason for us to forgive, let go, right? The Bible's full of health principles. It's not just, hey, just do this. It's important for us because our brain doesn't know that this isn't real. It happened 20 years ago, and that was horrible. I get it. And I'm glad I didn't go through that. I would die if that happened to me. But it's not going on today. You got to tell your brain that happened in the past. It's done. I'm not there anymore. Breathe. Go stand in the dirt. Get your breathing. Get some sunlight, and reverse all that stuff. And now I know we're kind of running out of time, and I apologize, but I want to just give you a couple things to really equip you, to really let you, when you're thinking, and you've heard this thing, stinking thinking, there's a lot to it. It really hurts your health. So there was an experiment that was done, and I don't know if it was truly to be an experiment.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was wondering when that was going to happen. It's usually somebody. So this was back when they still hanging people in jail, and I guess some researchers decided this experiment. They basically convinced the warden. I don't think they could do this today, but anyway, they were going to be hanged, or they gave the inmates, you could be bit by a rattlesnake. You were going to die, but they just wanted to see what would happen, right? So some of them were thinking, I don't want to, I'll take this rattlesnake, whatever. So they would bring them in the room, and they would let them see this big, huge rattlesnake. They would see it, and their heart would go, and all that stuff. Then they blindfolded them, and they just took a prick thing and pricked them. And they died and blew up like they were bit by a rattlesnake because they believed it. And when you read stuff like that, and I got volumes of things, I go, especially when working with athletes, like, you got to be careful what you're believing before you stand up to race, because your brain will believe it. Last time I did this race, I blew this third turn, and I know I'm going to blow it again. Not a good thing to think about, because if you can die by thinking that you got bit by a rattlesnake, and I've got so many cool stories about poison ivy, basically, where they would tell the kids, this is poison ivy. This was done in 1962 in Japan. This is poison ivy, except it wasn't. It was just a regular leaf. And they said, you're going to get an eruption right here because you're allergic to poison ivy. And then they took the poison ivy leaf and put it over here. So this is just the control. Nothing's going to happen over here. Because they were testing this poison ivy cream. It was a sham. 11 out of the 12 kids the next day got an eruption on the non-poison ivy leaf side. And you go, oh, that's wild. And then what I think in my field, orthopedic stuff, this surgeon in 1988, he did this surgery. It was a brand new knee surgery for osteoarthritis. He had, I think there was 50 patients. 25 of them got the old-fashioned surgery. They didn't know whether they were getting the new surgery or the old-fashioned surgery. Double-blind study. So what he did on the sham surgery, they did an incision, they closed them up. That was it. They didn't do anything in there. And the ones who got the surgery and the ones who didn't get the surgery, they had the same result. Same result. And he published in this orthopedic journal, which I read, and he was like, us surgeons, we could just do a sham surgery and go home. It's quicker, as long as they believe us. So remember, think about how important this brain is. So you can choose to let it run you, or you can run your brain. And it's fascinating, and I've given this lecture before on the mechanisms of how a thought will interact with the cells and how the cell membranes do this, and it's amazing how it'll actually call up pieces of the DNA and replicate it through RNA, which is why this RNA vaccination thing is a little crazy, but RNA has to do it, and then it sends out the cell. It's mind-boggling, all the steps that have to take place for us to do this, but it's all orchestrated by a creator that made this amazing, complicated, miraculous body. And if you just give it the things that it needs, you can be as healthy as possible. I'm not going to say it's going to cure everything, but take these things with you. There's Tracy's going to give you a handout, right?
I'll have them up here.
Up here?
Yep.
There's a handout. There's I know I rushed through a lot of the stuff, but there's some principles in there. You just put in practice. They're all free. You just, the breathing, the grounding, the sunlight. Another really cool one you'll see in there is called cold plunging, which I don't like it, but the effects of it's amazing. Now, here's the thing. It's to be the scientific sweet spot to get the best benefit from a cold plunge, and you can do it in a shower. The only thing is showers. I thought my home, I put it on ice cold, and I thought, oh, this is gonna. it ended up being 58 degrees. And I'm like, because the sweet spot is 48 to 52. People are doing these cold plunges at 37. There's no benefit to that. Matter of fact, it's actually harmful. 42 to 58 is the sweet spot where you dump shock proteins from your liver into your blood. Basically what happens is the brain goes, if I stay in this 48 to 52 degree temperature for a little while, I'm gonna die. So I'm gonna give you some warriors right now. Shock proteins are the guys, and they get dumped into your system. So if you got arthritis, it'll get rid of inflammation. You know, you're not digesting food right, you blast a bunch of digestive enzymes in there. It helps lower blood pressure, lowers cholesterol, everything. It's like amazing. But it's, excuse my language, but it sucks. So, you know, you get in, I do my shower, and then at the end of the shower, I'm like, turn, and then just get in there and deal with it. You only have to be in there between 3 and 6 minutes. It's tough. The first time I did it, I lasted 30 seconds. And I was like, I'll never get there. But I can do 6 minutes now. And for about 20, 30 minutes later, you feel something really cool going on in your body. I'm not gonna say you're gonna like it, because it keeps me from swimming, because pools are like 78 degrees, and jumping in that pool is like, and I go, my shower's 20 degrees cooler than that, and I just don't like to do it. But the effects are amazing, and people will say, you know, over time, I've had patients say, you know, people are saying that, I can't believe that, you know, I'm 74, you know, and they say, they look like I'm in my 50s. And it's like, they keep, you know, it reverses the aging clock. But of course you can't do it one time and go, oh my gosh, look, you know, you got to do it for months. But there are some other helpful tips on there. And I know we went over, but I'll stay here if anybody wants to ask any questions privately, fine. And Tracy has information if you do want to have a consultation with me. Again, I'm not trying to get patients. If you wanted to, she can set that up. Or we can help to refer to somebody up around here. But I'm here to help, and you can have my email. Even if you don't want to be a patient, you can email me questions. You're not going to hurt me. I love doing this stuff. It's a ministry. So did you